2, 1. Take 2. Right, hi everyone. Okay. Oh, my name is Squiggly Peter, and I loves my fish and chips. I loves that salt and vinegar as it trickles down me lips. Okay, I'm not going to sing the whole song for you again. I mean, I'm sure many of you heard it, and it's on all the other videos as well. Right, I'm going to cut straight to the chase. Try and keep these videos short and sweet. Although this is half an hour or so long, I think this is quite an interesting one. I haven't done anything like this on this channel before. What I'm going to do tonight is, or today, this evening actually, is show you how I put together a double page spread from scratch. Now, you've probably seen lots of my pictures and things like that, and you're probably aware that each double page spread has got a background and then several characters, and you use Photoshop to put them all together, and you know, it's quite a long-winded exercise. But I haven't uploaded a video that shows right from the start, you know, where the idea gets straight down into paper. I'll show you very briefly. I started work on the next double page spread today, and after an hour or so writing, this is what I had. And that's my design, that's my plan. Now I know where the whole story's going. I've written some of the verses of the last few pages and how the ending and so on, so I know how it ends, I know what's going to happen. But some of the pages, you know, towards the end, I haven't actually written all the text yet, but that's what I did today. So I sat down and I thought, okay, so we've got this double page spread here, which you saw in a video I uploaded a couple of days ago, where the Queen turns up in Parkgate. And if you haven't seen that video, it should be, well, it's on my YouTube channel anyway, so search Martyn Harvey the Poet on YouTube, and go to Squiggly Pete. Oh, I can't do it. Squiggly Pete, which is down here. There's the web address, squigglypete.co.uk. I'm going to get better at this. So anyway, so the Queen turns up in Parkgate, and so does Boris Johnson again. And anyway, this is the spread that happens after that, and it's right here on the desk in front of me. And if you forgive the wobbly camera, I'm going to show you that, and then we'll go into it. So here it is. Bum bum bum. Dun dun dun. Okay.
My name is Squiggly Peter, and I loves my fish and chips. I love that salt and vinegar, what dribbles down me lips. And when I'm out there pirating, my pencil in my hand, I draw myself whatever I need or whatever comes to hand. Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, the pirate.
Hi, welcome back everybody. I'm going to call this episode, What Will One Do With Them Peas? And you'll understand why later. Okay, today I thought I'd start with a blank piece of paper and show you something I don't think I've done in any of the other videos yet, or not fully. And that is how I go about putting together my next double page spread. Now, as you know, most of the pictures, well, all of the pictures in this book are that size. So all of the pictures in this book are that size, just slightly smaller than A3. This is an A3 sketch pad I've got here. The actual dimensions are, I think, 198 millimeters tall by, no, 198 wide by 264 millimeters tall, and that's just smaller than an A3. So each of these pages is about an A4 page. Okay, so this is the one I've been working on recently, and as you know, the Queen turns up in the story. Okay, so I've been sitting outside in the garden this afternoon thinking about how to progress to the next section, the next double page spread. I know exactly what's going to happen, but it was a question of how to get it all in, and that's why I'm going to show you how I put this together from scratch. So if you imagine we're going to finish up with, you know, a double page spread that size, you'll know where we're going. Right, so I wrote the words this afternoon, and this is what it looks like in my scribbly, scrawly handwriting. And as you can see, I have an idea for the illustrations here. I'll make little notes to myself, and once I get the idea for something, the words sort of flow quite easily and naturally. I actually dropped my car off to have it serviced about lunchtime today, and it was a nice sunny moment. The sun came through and it was warm, and I was walking home, and I thought, right, now these words, what's the Queen going to say next? And the Queen says, here we go, this is the same thing typed up. "But what will one do with them peas?" said the Queen. "They're starting to look a bit manky." "Oh, I haven't a clue," mumbled Pete, going red as he covered his face with his hanky. "Do not worry," said Lucy, ahead of the game. "I've got a solution already. We will need a small rocket and plenty of fuel. Squiggly Pete, can you draw when you're ready?" So Pete took out a pencil and sharpened it fine, and he scribbled a rocket and fuel, doing as he was told just for once in his life, when she wanted that Lucy was cruel. And then when it was done, Squiggly Peter did smile, and that pencil went back in his pocket, and the people of Parkgate and Neston stood round and admired Pete's wonderful rocket. Right, so this is where Pete is going to actually draw this rocket ship thing, which gets them out of the, sorts out what they're going to do with the mushy peas. And as you can see in my notebook here, these are some of the working pages. Anyway, what I tend to do is I write the words, and if I have any ideas on illustrations to go with it, I'll scribble them down on the left-hand side of the paper, which is always blank. Sometimes it can be seen as a bit wasteful, but I do use these pages. And for some reason, we were taught this way at school 50 years ago, for me, to leave that side blank and just write on one side. It was something to do with the quality of the paper and ink blotting through, and the ink cartridge pens we used to use. I can't remember why, but anyway, in our neat book, this is how we did it. And I always find this very useful to have this page available for sketching or jotting down other lines, alternative verses, and so on. Okay, so here the Queen says, "But what will you do with them peas?" said the Queen. "They're starting to look a bit manky." Now, obviously, I've had this question about some of my poems before. I throw in words that are not, strictly speaking, grammatically correct, but on the other hand, they do add a bit more flavour. Of course, the Queen would never be so, what's the word? Blasé, perhaps, as to say, "What would one do with them peas?" She would say, "Those peas. They is starting to look a bit manky." Of course, the Queen wouldn't say that, but it's more fun for kids if she does. "What will one do with them peas?" said the Queen. And the other thing is, when I do these things, especially these longer stories, illustrated books, I always think of them as a film. And I imagine the characters acting it out, so I can see the Queen. I don't know who'd play her, but "What will one do with them peas?" said the Queen. "They are starting to look a bit manky." "Oh, I haven't a clue," mumbled Pete, going red as he covered his face with his hanky. So here we have, I just thought, oh yes, I know. I can have the Queen prodding that big Hoover machine's belly with the peas all gurgling away inside, and the Queen could be here just poking those. So I'll show you what I'm going to do with this in a minute. And down the bottom, I wanted to show the boat coming back into the story. If you remember, right at the beginning, there's Pete's boat, and he turns up in Parkgate with his little boat, and moors it up alongside the little slipway here down by the old customs house, and that's the last we see of it for the rest of the story. You see, he comes onto land, he leaves his little boat there. So I want to bring the boat back into it, and also bring the story full circle back to where it all started, around by the old custom house there. So here I've got a sketch of the old custom house, Wales in the background here, so we're looking sort of southwest, and they're going to be hauling the boat up the slipway, which is something that people would have done hundreds of years ago, maybe even not so many decades ago. So these are the two sketches I've got to go with it. I've also got other ideas of how I'm going to treat these words here. But I just thought I'd show you how I start to go about turning this into a double page spread. Right, so what I do, first of all, is I type up the words, because that's what I'm going to need. And then, just in case I lose my book, at least I've got a copy electronically. And then I get a pair of scissors, or sometimes a scalpel, but I think the scalpel might be a little bit blunt. I don't know. I'll give it a try. Any children watching, don't try this at home. Use a pair of plastic scissors. Right. Yeah, this one's very blunt, but it might well work. And I cut out the words in an irregular shape. Whoops.
irregular shape like this, and the reason for that is because when I'm looking at the page I don't have any harsh square lines distracting me. All the corners are rounded. Yeah, it's just about worked. I need a new blade in that scalpel to press harder next time. It's one. Pressing a little bit harder now. I think that's done the trick. Two verses. Three verses. And I try and cut quite close to the text because that allows me more room to sort of draw around. Although it doesn't really matter because I can draw straight over this paper as well. There we go. Okay. So there's our four. There are our four verses. Now, the reason for doing this is because I can sort of shuffle them about on the page. So I know I'm going to have the Queen looking at these over here, and in this layout I'm not going to do one of those layouts with the full scenery background, you know, the actual landscape of Parkgate Neston as a background. This one's going to be one of those, I don't know what you call it, but pages where you have several images on one page, such as this one here, for example. I've got one big picture there, one picture here which is actually made up of several pieces, and then I think the chip shop, there's another example of one there. I've got the machine, the potato peeling machine in the middle here, the chip shop at the side, which I wanted, and we've also got a little picture of Squiggly Pete reading the shut sign, sharing his chips with Jack outside the chip shop here, the cat poking, staring out at us. And I've also got the illustration of the difference between real chips and scribble chips, which is very important to understand because real chips are actually really quite firm and tasty and taste lovely with a bit of salt and vinegar. But if you put vinegar on, you know, hand-drawn chips, they go a bit soggy. Anyway, so this is the sort of style of picture I'm going to do for this layout. Now, as I said, I photocopied that page from the book because that enables me, instead of scribbling more, I can just use this as sort of like shorthand. So now I've got the machine there. There, so I'm going to cut this out, I didn't go deep enough. Oops. So I'm rushing this because I'm trying to make the video not too long. Probably cut off one of my fingers and I end up looking like Squiggly Pete. Right, now I already know that I'm going to have this little picture here down the bottom of the page because being sort of linear like that with the horizon and Wales in the background there, it sort of frames the bottom of the page nicely. Maybe I could have the words above it, I'm not sure. I'll think about that. So this is going to be pretty much up here where your page, I have the same sort of margin on each page just for consistency, and the words always start at roughly the same sort of area up here. So we're going to have some words there. This sort of picture down here, and I think that fits nicely because here we've just got a blank space where the sky would be, so that doesn't really interfere with anything. If we had it like that, you see, you're fighting with the chimneys and the houses and that sort of business, but that actually fits quite nicely over there. And I want to have Pete holding up his sharpened pencil here. Oh yes, look, he's lifted his eye patch. That's only the second time you'll ever see him do that. Right, the first time was earlier in the book. Now, okay, so that fits quite nicely there actually. I quite like that. I'm just going to trim off the edge there because then I can see where the edge of the page is going to be. Like that. That's nice. Okay. And because I'm going to be sticking this down, I don't want any hard writing lines sticking out if I can help it. This is just tidying things up a bit. This is just for sort of convenience. And if you're wondering where all the paper goes, I keep a bin under my desk and it's straight in there. Right, so this is starting to take shape quite nicely. See, I could have it like that. Well, I can always change it around using Photoshop if I'm not happy. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stick this together. There. Just going to trim off a bit there. And I use the old trusty, not sure if I can say brand names or not because it is my video. And, you know, well, if you happen to see what I'm using, you see what I'm using. I'm not getting any money from the people who make this stuff. Everything, all stationery and stuff is purchased at my own expense. So there we go. A little bit of the non-sticky sticky stuff, and we'll have that about there, I think. Not too close to the gutter. This is the gutter of the page, which I forgot to mark actually, because when you're drawing stuff in a folded book, if you imagine you've got a double page spread, the book doesn't actually sit nice and flat like that. The book has a gutter, that's this bit down here. And they call it that because it's like a gutter. And pennies might roll away down there. So you don't actually get to see the actual middle of the book. So when you're designing layouts, you've always got to remember, you've got to think about the gutter. You don't want anything important disappearing down there like Squiggly Pete or one of those rats. So unfortunately you do lose a bit. There's not much you can do about that. You can sort of compensate digitally, but well, it's better just to not put anything too important in the gutter. And what I do, seeing as we're on that subject, is I get my ruler and I mark 1 centimetre either side of the gutter in my pencil gone. Pencil, like this, and I'm just doing it roughly, it doesn't have to be exact. I've lost my transparent ruler. And then just mark that, a big squiggle down the middle, like that. And that reminds me, if I'm sketching or drawing anything, don't go in that area there, because that's going to be the fold in the middle of the page. In fact, I will darken that because I'm not going to do a big landscape on this. This isn't a sketch of that type. This is purely for layout. So there we go. So let's just quickly stick down the rest of them bits and pieces, as the Queen would say, or not. I do like this sticky stuff. It's quite convenient, although sometimes it goes a bit blobby. Oops, I mentioned another trade name there. So there we go. So I'll make that a priority, where the words are going to go, because I like to keep the margins and the layout pretty regular. It just helps with reading. You don't have to sort of turn the page and think, oh, where did the words go? Right, and here we're going to something like that. I'll probably change that line there and put it under here. So I'm going to cut it off actually. Right, and we'll stick that in a convenient place down here. Now this is, sometimes I use these to plan the layout quite accurately if there's a lot to get in or something crucial to get in, like 2 ends of a street or something. But in other cases, it's more rough. There we go. Some sort of it's a sort of like test to see how everything works together. So I shall say, can you draw when you're ready? There we go. That's that. And then of course the Queen poking the peas. Okie doke. I don't want that bit. And it won't be exactly like that, but there we go. Now this one's getting a bit sticky. So just do that. And there we go. Now this is starting to give us our layout, you see, so the page is starting to take shape. Now, the other 2 verses, I've generally got 4 verses to a double page spread or 2 verses to a page, although that isn't always the case. But that's how these books sort of work. It's just my sort of way of doing it. Right, so we need Peter to take out his pencil and sharpen it fine, which is mentioned over here. So we've got, what will one do with them peas, said the Queen, and a little picture there of her poking the peas. Don't worry, said Lucy, ahead of the game. I've got a solution ready. So I could have had Lucy close up talking to Pete there, but then this picture would have ended up here, which is in the middle of the page. So I can have Lucy being instructive on this side, I think. So Pete took out a pencil and sharpened it fine. That's down there. So the words are quite close to that. That's fine. As far as reading it goes, it doesn't go here, there and everywhere too much. I've always got to think about that as well. Think about the practicalities of reading, and a child and a parent reading it together, and the child following the flow of what goes on. Now, the child is going to be looking at the pictures primarily and taking in the story as the parent is reading. But then hopefully later they'll come back to the book and then they'll learn to pick out the words themselves, and through a love of the story, and they'll then start to love reading it themselves and eventually be able to pick up on that. So it's important that the visual goes pretty much closely with the words, so that the child doesn't have, well, I was going to say doesn't have to think too much, but this is another thing that I like to stick to when I'm doing my books. People say, oh, you shouldn't make it too complicated, and children won't understand a big word like that. But I always think, this is how I learnt. How I learnt was I read something. If I didn't understand a word, I'd ask someone or go to the library. In those days, we didn't have Google or the internet, and go to the counter and ask for a book and look it up and find out. You'd explore, and that's one of the exciting things about language and learning. The exploration aspect of it, the joy of finding something new, or having your parents explain what such and such means. So I always think, I don't shy away from using big words and stuff. I'd rather write good quality verse, good quality prose, stuff that's rich and enjoyable for children rather than being too bland. And this is why those Disney things drive me nuts. When you see the Disney books in the supermarkets, the sort of the children's book version of a popular story like Aladdin or Snow White or whatever they have these days, the Frozen thing. Each page just describes in a very bland way what's happening on the film, and you turn the page and it's almost as like subtitles on a film, and it's there's no flavour, there's no verve, no kick to it. So that's why I like to just use my own voice, as it were. Right, so here we are. We've got this verse up here, this verse here, and I'm going to show the process of Pete drawing this thing now, this rocket and the fuel. So I might have I might even break this up even more. I could have sort of 2 lines here, 2 lines here, 2 lines here, 2 lines there. I'll have a think about that. So I'm going to do some sketching. Maybe I'll sketch on a separate piece of paper and then add it in here. Right, tell you what I'll do. I'll get a piece of paper. I'm just going to make some sort of mental notes. So let's have a look at the text. So Pete took out a pencil and sharpened it fine, yes, and he scribbled a rocket and a fuel, doing just as he was told. So I want to have maybe Lucy here looking at Pete. Now I know what expression she's going to have, and she's going to have a bit of a scowl because she's telling Pete, come on, button it up, get on with what you're supposed to be doing. Stop messing around, you crazy pirate fool. Okay, before we know it, there we have Lucy. Okay, looking a little bit... okay, so let's think about body language. Gestures and so on. Yes, you're right. She will have her arms folded. It's very difficult to draw arms folded actually, so I'll do that somewhere else, but here we are, arms folded, being assertive. So if we were drawing the full body, we might have a leaning like this towards Pete. Okay, we've lost Lucy's sword along the way. I might have to go back and I'm going to put it back in there as a little symbol to say Lucy's being assertive, because all the way through she's actually the sensible one, and although Pete gets the credit, he's made Sir Squiggly Pete because of this whole story. It's actually Lucy who's the clever one, who does all the planning and thinking, so there's something to think about. Right, so I want to have Lucy over this side, so Pete took out the pencil. Maybe we'll have Pete hunched over a drawing board or something. Maybe we can have a side view. I don't think we've had any side views of Pete. There we go. So let's start with his nose and sort of work back. So there's the shape of his head. If you imagine, when I draw human heads, I always draw a nice almond oval shape combined with a sphere, and that usually gives me the shape I need, and you can work out the rest from there. So there's, and his neck would be like this because he's hunched low. Let's have his collar up above him there like that. The back of his head, there's his spotty handkerchief hanging down like that. So he's hunched. Maybe we raise his shoulder like this because he's drawing. Right, and they're planning that out. This is what I do. Okay, so imagine his spine. Luckily I did human biology, so I have a pretty good understanding of how the human body works and is arranged and so on. So we'd have, maybe his elbow comes out wide like this. So I imagine a stick person. Okay, there's the head, circle, spine, the I forgot what they called it in biology now. There's like the pelvic girdle, I know that, and the, not a pen, I can't remember, but the bones are hanging from this area here and this area here. So anyway, so there's the spine. You have a shoulder blades and stuff here, and one arm going out here, and the foreshortening, as they call it in art, is the tricky thing to do. I'm sort of using a bit of my imagination and also planning it out, plotting it out here as we go. So he's going to be hunched forward, so I want the back to go like this, and that elbow out to the side. Maybe we'll have him at a table drawing like that. There we go. Of course he's got his hand here, knuckles, thumb. Of course the pencil is the main character in this one, so I'm going to make that big like that, and of course we can't see what he's drawing. That would be giving it away. I'm going to wait till you turn the page, and his earrings like that, and his moustache, a little hint of beard. Now from the side we're just going to see the eye patch like that. So there we go. So there's Squiggly Pete drawing, and Lucy looking on. Of course we need Jack in as well. Now that's going to be shrunk down a bit because that's obviously taken up most of the page there. And I want to put another picture in here. Or do I? Let's have a look at the text. And when it was done, Squiggly Peter did smile, and the pencil went back in his pocket. Yes, I want something to sort of lead in. I want some other faces here looking in to make the turn, because on the next page is the big reveal. So that's going to be smaller. That's fine. And down here, we're going to have something else. Okay, what I'm going to do is just take a quick break. I'm going to photocopy that, reduce it down, cut it out, stick it on the page, and then we can go from there. Hold on. Okay, so here's the original sketch I did a few minutes ago, and as I said, that's a little bit big for the page, although I will probably just trace this and paint straight from this, because that's the size which I normally work with. And the reason for that is, if you're doing facial features and so on, and it's too small to work with, then you end up losing the ability to define facial expressions accurately and nicely. So I usually work with it a bit bigger, scan it in, and then shrink it down to size in Photoshop. But what I'm planning out today is how these pictures will work together. Okay, so I've been to the photocopier and photocopied it. As you can see, that's the original, 100%. That is 80%, and that's 70% there. Okay, now if we use the 80% one and put the words back in the picture, we're going to be a little bit cramped, because down here I want to get, as it says, the people of Parkgate and Leston standing around admiring Pete, whatever he's drawing. We don't, you can't see it yet. I've put it, deliberately put his back to us, so we can see scribbling something. But when you turn the page, it'll be, oh wow, there it is. Right. So now, as I'm going to be painting from this one, and then choosing the actual finished size in Photoshop, it doesn't matter too much here. This is just sort of a layout for me to work out what's going where. Now, I'm going to line up roughly the text there. So if you bear with me, my sticky stick thing, a minute or two, we'll get that one down. Yeah, so line it up with there. Put it about there. This is only rough, you see. Well, I say rough. This process really helps to work out, where things are going to go, because some of these scenes, believe it or not, I've had in my head for over a year. I remember going out for walks with my partner Sarah, walking around Parkgate and saying, "Oh, I can imagine Squiggly Pete there, and the boat here, and this doing that," and and some of these images you carry around in your mind for months, until I actually finally get to the piece where the point where I say, right, I'm ready to start this one now. And then suddenly there's the picture. I do this, and there's the picture I've had in my mind all that time. For example, to show you the working copy of the book again, when I did the first picture here, I thought, oh, it'd be lovely to have a picture of the boathouse in it. Everybody knows that. And I imagined the water coming this far up and the boat there. And it wasn't long before we went on a walk one evening, and I imagined that and drew that and painted it. It wasn't long, because this is right at the beginning of the book. But as time's gone on, I knew that was going to be like that. I wasn't sure about that. It was difficult to get the chip shop in with only that little bit and these ideas. But anyway, that's always going to be recognisable, that scene there with the Elephant Lounge. I wanted to get Martyn. Hold on, my computer's having performance issues apparently. So I wanted to get Martyn House in it clearly there, to put a big stamp. That's definitely Parkgate there. You can't miss that. I'll remember where I was getting to in a minute. That's right, having ideas for these things. So I had the idea of the chip shop with the cat stuck in the window, and it was a couple of months, evening walks before I finally got around to doing that. But one of the ones I remember was this one. Well, there was this one here, where they're camping out a little spot, the old quay, which is tucked away down by the marsh in Neston. And you can actually walk there and see that. And I did that. That was one of the earliest scenes I did, because I wanted to sort of tell the whole idea of having them camping out in the nighttime scene and so on. One of the scenes that was months and months and months and months, there was that one. We went for a walk down the Wirral Country Park Way many, many times last year. And as we were coming up to the gate, I'd see these houses, and I said to Sarah, that would be nice if I could get the machine, because I was working out the route that the story follows as well. And I was also working it out because I wanted to, create a route that parents could take their children along and say, look, this is where such and such, and this is where such and such. So we came to there, and I took several photographs of this gate several times, thinking how I could work it in. And then finally I got to the point of doing this and having these lovely houses down here. I've turned this signboard around so you can actually see it. Technically it's looking the other way, but artistic license and so on. And it was great, but I held that image in my mind for probably nearly a year. Same with that one. And in fact, all of these, it was a year ago I actually had these ideas. Right, so now And I must admit, I wasn't too clear on this one, but it's great to finally get to this point and see it coming together. Here he is drawing the thing. Right, so this is how I'm going to do the layout. That gives me time to put space to put the words there, which gives me all that big space there to do a sketch of Peter showing people the rocket. So I'm just going to dab that quickly like that, because the nice thing about this is you can peel it off without damaging the paper too much. So I'll put that there, and that gives me that sort of area there. Okay, now let me just have a quick think about this, because I want to show Peter showing the drawing and people here looking on. And I've also got this picture over here. Now I don't mind if people are moving this way, you see, so they can be looking back at him like that, but they're actually included in this picture as people are coming along to see what's going on. What's this Squiggly Pete doing? Oh, look, they're pointing. And people coming along here. So you see, I'm just sort of getting an idea. Maybe there's someone with a pram, and there's a baby in the pram. The baby's looking, maybe dummy in the baby's mouth. The baby's pointing. Oh, look, there's Squiggly Pete. Okay, so you get the idea. So there's a flow from right from this side to this side. At first you might look at it and think, what's going on with this? But you see there's a nice circularity there. I mean, I studied history of art years ago, and we always discussed the masterpieces, and women's paintings, great women painters as well. But the masterpieces, the arrangement of how the eye followed things around in circles or diagonals and things like that. And I tried to get some of that into my work as well. So here we are reading this. We've got the Queen here, which follows on from the Queen on the previous page. Here's the bringing back the boat, blah, 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 but there's a natural flow, you see, bringing the people over here and over here. There's Pete drawing. I think I'm going to have Pete something like this. So there's the big drawing. Pete's fingers here like this. Okay. You won't see the other hand. There he is. He's got to be looking proud of himself. So if he's holding his hand here, his elbow will be here, his body will be like this. Can you see how I'm sort of plotting out how things go? Now I could have him looking at his own drawing like this, in which case I'd need to move it back a bit. But I could, for comic effect, make it a huge piece of paper like this, and we don't know. That's the cheeky thing. You can't see what it is, and you want to see what's on the other side. And of course Pete here, cheekily, yes, here we go, he's looking back at them, looking proud and smiling. So I'm going to have his head there. So draw an oval and a sphere on the back. That's how I get a human shape. Squiggly Pete's got his long nose. He's got a big grin, eyes half closed because he's relaxed and happy. And there's Squiggly Pete. Put his ears here. Of course, his red spotted neckerchief on top, and an earring. There he is. So he'll be like that. We'll see his shoulders here, his arm holding the paper, but of course we don't know what's on it yet. Have the paper jiggling around, and people here. Oh, maybe that could be Little Jack. Little Jack looking over here, I think. Tall people here looking down, and the big reveal is over here. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, you've actually seen it in real time. So that's how I've designed the layout, starting from this. There we go, the words. But what will you do with MPs, said the Queen. And a couple of ideas. There's the Queen poking the thing. Here's here they are pulling the boat out in Customs House and blah blah blah. And in real time I've just worked out with you how the whole thing's going to fit together like that. Okay. Now the nice thing is I've still got a bit of Parkgate in here, but it means I don't have to draw that massive background. So this double page spread shouldn't take too long to do. It might take quite a while to do all the little people in here and so on, but I'm looking forward to that. And when we turn the page, we'll see what he's done. Oh, one last thing. I have to remember to put his pencil back in his pocket there. So yeah, looking forward to that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to call this part 1, and in a few days I'll upload part 2, which will show the actual painting and drawing and scanning and putting it all together. Thanks for watching, folks. Don't forget, go to www.squigglypete.co.uk for more. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, hello. Right, has the video ended? Okay. Yeah, so, right, I hope you all enjoyed that and you're looking forward to the next episode. In the next episode, I'm going to get my paints out and do some drawing and painting and fill this one in. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye, everyone. Where's the button? Oh, here it is.
My name is Squiggly Peter, and I loves my fish and chips. I love that salt and vinegar, what dribbles down me lips. And when I'm out there pirating, my pencil in my hand, I draw myself whatever I need or whatever comes to hand. Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, Squiggly Pete, the pirate.